Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am Janice. I'm the quiet healer here on Long Island. I'm a Reiki master teacher and medium. I'm an intuitive. So, thank you for joining me. I want to welcome our guest today. His name is Chris Fonte. He is a VR pioneer. He does a lot of VR work and making it accessible, doing a lot of accessibility events here on Long Island and across the New York City and boroughs area. So, help me welcome Chris Fonte. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Janice. How you doing?
Good. How about your what have you been doing today?
Today, I haven't really been doing much. I just woke up and got ready for this podcast, and here I am.
Yep. So you do VR, but I also know you're a musician and
hmm
you also do your own videos. So why don't you take us through the journey of music to VR?
Sure. When I was at school, I had some opportunities to make music for some games, which is kind of how I got involved with game development for the first time and kind of doing that stuff. And I made a game with a friend. It was called Quest. And so me and this friend, we would go to a lot of conventions together, just indie game conventions like PAX in Boston and stuff like that. And one day I went to PAX and I tried VR for the first time at a PAX after party and played this game called Robo Recall on the Oculus. And that was the first time I played VR, and I was just blown away. I said, "This is some crazy technology. I could see this really picking up and going places." And that's kind of how I started with VR. It kind of was a journey from doing music, working on music for games, and then I found VR. And nowadays I'm making games in VR and putting my own music into it. So everything kind of just merged together in the end, and I've just been following that path since.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, do you find what brings you the most peace? We'll start there. Is it the music or is it being creative and enmeshing with VR?
I guess a little bit of both, but I will say if I am feeling stressed, the best stress relief for me to put me in a peaceful state is to just play guitar. No, not even recording it or anything, just sit down and just play it and just like mess around with it. That's just like kind of my way to meditate and relax, I guess. But I do also find some peace when I do, some virtual reality games. There's some games that are intense, but some games that are very meditative. I will say that like the act of actually making the games though is not very meditative though. It's a little stressful, and a little bit more intense, but um, playing the games could be very meditative though, I will say.
Yep. Now, on that note, how would you define peace? How do you define peace?
I think any time that you kind of can put all your problems that you have in the world out of your mind, and get into a state where it's kind of like a blank slate, and you're just kind of like, in the zone, thinking about, what's around you at that moment and not the external things in your life. I think that's kind of like being in a state of true peace. And sometimes it's hard to like stay in that state, but I guess that's what meditation is, trying to just sit and keep yourself in that space.
And what do you do to find peace? How do you find peace?
Um, I just kind of sit and I realize, a lot of these things that are giving me issues that I'm kind of stressing about don't really matter in the long run. I look at all the things I have in my life that I'm grateful for and focus on those and just try and get into a stream of thought that is just all positivity and just thinking about, good things. And like I said, trying to get all the stresses out, keep them out and just, live in the moment for a little bit.
Michael said that was a great definition of peace. We welcome Michael to the viewing platform.
Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you.
And so when you're going and you're trying to get into that clean slate and do just, I don't want to call it blanking out, but for lack of a better term at this point, just getting to this clear state of, okay, I just want to focus and I want to focus on the positive. How do you kind of get there?
Think about my family and friends. That's one thing in my life that I have that I'm pretty grateful for. Um, they're always like there for me, and I guess if I was trying to, think about the positives in my life, I would just think about the moments I shared with them, either recent or even a very long time ago. Um, just thinking about those memories, reliving them in your mind. I think that's a good way to just, start thinking about positive things. Um, and like I said, also playing guitar could help me kind of just uh, get a streamlined focus of just, because when you play the guitar, you're kind of in a state of just like your mind's half of it could be thinking about something else, but you got to like dedicate half of it to focusing on the music and like your fingers and everything. So just kind of having that also there would kind of keep the bad things out, make you focus on like one thing, which could be the good memories, like I mentioned. So I guess that's one way that I do that.
Now, do you find that the intense focus, like with playing guitar or building a game or just trying to meditate, that intense focus helps you to like reground and recenter as you find peace?
Yes, definitely when I'm playing guitar, that will help me, be grounded and find peace. I don't think that when I'm making the games, I don't feel that same way. Like I said, it's a little stressful sometimes and a little more intensive. So I wouldn't say that I'm at peace when I'm like, making the games. But playing the games also, I think when you're in VR, you could visually and sonically trick your mind to being somewhere else. So if you're like in a cramped apartment, and that's kind of stressing you out, you could use VR to kind of sit back, feel like you're at a beach or something. And if you're capable, you can, really just put your mind into a space where you're like, okay, this is where I am right now. This is like, my space right now is this big beach or wherever you are in virtual reality. And that could really help you relax, I think. But it could also do the opposite if you're in like a intense virtual reality game, which is sometimes the intention. Uh, but if you're trying to find peace, it could be helpful to just, put it on a beach or some kind of like maybe underwater ocean, just hear it and see it, and then sit back and just, envision yourself there. It could be very helpful, I think.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, going in and thinking of those 2 things, how do you bring peace to others, either through music or through your creation or helping people in general? How do you bring peace to others?
I think through my business, I could bring some peace to people. I have done a lot of events in the past where we do kind of like meditation events. One time there was an event I did at it was Amherst College, and it was during finals week, so a lot of the students were really stressed out. And to bring them peace, we just kind of set up this whole big room that had a person with a massage therapist. It had some like food, some drinks, and then I set up VR kind of like environments so people could pick they wanted to be on like the African savannah underwater in like a beach or something, and they would just sit back and just kind of sit pretzel style and just relax for a bit. And I think that was one way that I kind of brought peace to people, because I really saw them just they were like sitting there like just leaning back and just because they were really stressed out from finals, so it gave me a little momentary peace, I think, that way.
So, is that your overall goal in doing those type of events, is to bring peace, or, do you find other ways to do it as well? Like, say and here's a good example, the older generation, they're not necessarily going to adapt to VR, so how would you bring them peace?
Um, if I was at like an event for my business, you mean, or just in
In general, this
in
is how
general?
do you bring peace?
Um, to older people, I guess I would just try and level with them, try and because sometimes with older people, there's a little generational gap, and sometimes it's hard for people to get over that gap. But I think the best way to bring peace to someone like that would be to just acknowledge that and try and level with them, see it from their point of view, try and hear what they're saying. Some I know like sometimes even my own parents, they have a little bit different views, but you just got to kind of accept it and try and talk to them in a way that they find um helpful and stuff. And yeah, I guess just trying to level with them, try and see the world from their point of view and talk to them in a way that they want to be talked to. I guess that'll be a way for me to like find peace for older people.
And what is your favorite way of bringing or finding peace? Well, actually, it's two separate questions. So,
I guess my like I might have said this before, but my favorite way of finding peace is guitar. And I guess my favorite way of bringing peace would probably be VR, like bringing the virtual reality environments, like I said. Um, so those would be my way to bring peace and I find it.
and so when you're making these relaxing environments, what is your main goal? What's your overall goal when you're creating these environments to have them independent or just for events? And why would you do one over the other?
hmm Well, I haven't made two. So the environments that I was mentioning that I brought to the college and stuff like that, I didn't design those. Those are just VR games that are accessible on like online and stuff. So the most relaxing kind of game I've made probably is I'm actually working on a boat game right now. And my intention with it is maybe not to have people relax in it. You're supposed to like drive the boat and stuff, but I feel like there's definitely gonna be points where people just put the wheel down and just sit back and listen to the waves. So I think by doing the sound design is a really good way to kind of influence how people are gonna feel in the VR game. And this boat game right now it doesn't have any music, just has the sound of waves. You just kind of like you could sit back and just look at the waves for a bit. You're not like driving the boat. I was gonna put like a sound of like a motor on the boat, but maybe if I want to make it more peaceful, I could just keep it, silent. Put some seagulls or something like that. And I think I'm gonna add a custom track as well, like some ambient music. I'm gonna keep it real like, low key. I don't want to make it too intense. Some of my other games I've made are kind of like the music's more intense because it's like you're like driving down a road doing crazy stuff. So, but for this boat game, I think maybe put just focusing the sound design on like a really ambient, relaxing way is gonna influence people to say, okay, this is a relaxing game.
So now there are apps like Headspace and Insight and they're meditation apps. Is this like in the VR world something that would integrate with those?
My business,
Not
I
that
guess,
the boat game, but in just thinking long term and how you can make a peaceful environment, would you integrate with those?
yeah, I guess if I was gonna do another event that was like a meditation event, I could definitely consider those games. The ones that I used were like very simple because a lot of the events I do, I try and keep the games as simple as possible. Because some people have never tried VR, so it's their first time. So the games I had were just basically just literally just in a space and you look around. That's it. You sit down, pretzel style, and you just do that. So the meditation apps, I don't know like how complicated they would be if you have to like go through menus or like do some stuff like that. But if it was simple enough that I could just maybe do the menus for them and then put the headset on them and then they could just sit and relax, I think that could be a viable option. Then I just haven't had really any kind of meditative events booked in a while, so I haven't really explored any of those newer meditative apps. But if there was one, I could definitely consider those and try and curate a list of games that would be appropriate for that kind of event.
So now focusing on peace. So vers- virtuality versus reality and the areas in which we find peace and environments in which we find peace. So in reality, you can go to the beach where we live. You can go to the mountains. It would be a little bit of a hike. So what makes VR different than actually being in real nature or at the beach in what would be the pros and cons of that?
hmm Well, I don't think you'll ever really truly be able to replace like the real life beach, um, and some places like that. But there's other places that you could go to in VR that you can never really go to in real life or see them in a way that you can't see them in real life. So I think those might be more of like a transcendence as far as like a meditative kind of state, and somewhere that you truly can't go in real life, like space or something like that, or like underwater. So if you go to space or underwater in real life, probably gonna be pretty intense, and most people don't really even do that. So being able to do it like in the comfort of your home or just like, in a nice little chair and you're like in this space, but you're like safe, in reality. I think that also brings us like an element to the meditativeness. And like I said, you're never going to really replace something like the beach or something like that. I think people should always still go to the beach and go out in nature, and even if they have VR. Um, but I have been thinking like if there was a beach game, how you can make it feel as real as possible. And I've been thinking like maybe get a sandbox, a heat lamp, and like a fan, and then go into VR. Um, and I never tried it myself, but I feel like you would really feel like you're at the real beach if you did that. Um, so maybe if someone like wasn't able to, go out of their house or like had a disability or something, that could be a way to make them feel like they were at the beach again without having to go out in the sun and all that. So VR has the power to do things like that, bring you to places, but um, as far as making it or replacing reality and replacing real nature, I don't think it's there, or maybe might ever even get to that point. I don't think nature will ever be replaced by any kind of simulation, but we'll see. Maybe it'll get too realistic, and we'll get to that point.
And you brought up the accessibility factor. So somebody's like in a wheelchair or they can't go outside for whatever reason, VR is a really good choice.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And even like socially, it's really helpful for people that have disabilities because you could go to like bars in VR, parties, all these crazy like stuff. And a lot of people, if you find the right um, game and the right kind of server or room to join, I guess you could say, some of the people are like really, really accepting and really nice. There's some rooms in VR where there's a bunch of like trolls and people going crazy and it's all silly. But some of them are like, really chill. These people are really nice. Some of them have the same, situation too. They're kind of like maybe disabled or something, and you can meet them in VR in a way that you could be across the world and you guys are in the same room now because of VR, and you could talk and stuff and move around the room and feel like you're really there. So if you're unable to like leave your house and you wanted some social interaction, you could definitely use VR for that, I think. And even when I design games, I kind of keep it in mind that like maybe someone might not be able to play the game, but they can still see the game. So I have like a wireless keyboard so I can control the game with my keyboard. So if someone wants to play like the driving game that I have, I could just put the headset on. They don't even have to really play it. They could just sit and I could, I'll be like, you want to go forward? You want to go backwards? And they could just say what they want to do. And so you can't really do that with most VR games. It's like something that you only get with Pioneer VR, I guess. But um, anyone that downloads VR can jump into a like a VR server and just like hang out with people, or even just be alone and just look around and stuff and feel like they're outside their house. It's definitely a way to help out like the disabled community, I think. So
And you brought up something very interesting because I've even noticed it during the pandemic with my son. And, we weren't allowed to go anywhere, but you could be with your friends, and your friends could be anywhere. So, do you find that for like people who have agoraphobia or a disability, you find that might bring them some peace and being able to have that social connection, and it doesn't matter where they are?
yeah, I think people that maybe have social anxiety is that what you're getting at too,
Yeah.
kind of?
That
Yeah, definitely would help them practice. Um, you're in a state, when you're in those places, you're able to just take the headset off if it gets too much. So I always tell people, like even in my games, I'm like, it's too much. It's just VR. You can just take the headset off. You don't have to be stuck in there. So if someone wanted to, practice on their social anxiety, they could definitely go into a VR app, kind of like, talk with people. And if it gets too much, you just take it off and then you go back in when you're ready. So it's a way to kind of ease into, maybe going into social situations if someone's not too used to it. just another kind of way that you could use VR as a tool to help you learn, basically.
Now, on the flip side, do you think that something like that would keep people from going out?
Um, I think a certain type of people, yes. People definitely. I mean, I don't know if it's bad, but they find communities in VR. You know, people that they really connect with and stuff. And um, I'm sure these people aren't just spending like their whole lives in VR, but I have met people that have really internet connected communities in VR. They like meet up at a certain time in VR, and they expect everyone else to, join them and see each other, the same people every day or once a week or, whatever it may be. Um, so, but I'm not sure if I'm trying to think of like a situation where it would be bad. Like, I guess if someone just was going into like VR and just trolling people like every day and like letting out their anger or something every day, and like that was how they were able to do that, is by like pestering people in VR. I guess that would be bad. Like instead of socially just going out and like having to deal with real people, they do that. That's one bad example, I guess. But I don't really think that that happens too much. I think more likely it's good examples, people that go into VR often and find social interaction through it.
So, on as we get here, how like what's in your toolbox? Not VR. What's in your toolbox to help bring people peace? Like if you and your partner are like getting ready to present something and he's stressed out and you're stressed out, how do you calm down and get ready to present?
Um, to present something, I guess I would just say like, look like I said before, put things in perspective. I'd say this isn't really like, the most important thing ever. If something goes wrong, it's not like the end of the world. We just gotta do our best. There's been times where I've gone up on a stage and, fumbled a bit. It's not really a big deal. You just gotta go up there and do it and not think too hard about it. So I guess my toolbox would just be like my words and experience, I guess. If I was trying to calm somebody before going up on a stage. I think sometimes I play guitar for other people to help relieve stress. I don't know if it relieves them stress, but I'll just like my if my girlfriend's here or something, and sometimes I'll just play the guitar, and she falls asleep. So I'm assuming that it's relaxing enough and meditative enough that she's able to like doze off and relax. So I think, with other people too, like if they were stressed out and crying, maybe I might not be the best person to talk to, but I could definitely just be a shoulder to like, cry on, or someone to sit with, and I could play some music, or I could try and talk. But yeah, I would say like my toolbox, like with I'm not like too good as being a therapist, I guess,
It's
but
okay.
I definitely would try to help people. Like that could be like a something in my toolbox, I think, to help bring peace. I would never like, not try and talk to someone. And I think I have actually talked to a lot of people in the past and tried to bring them peace when they were having a stressful time. So maybe I'm not as bad at it as I thought I am, but I guess that's my answer to that.
And one final question, why VR?
Um, I think it's just I think I focus on VR so much because I see so many people try it for the first time. When I first started doing Pioneer VR, it was because I saw this technology and I was like, this has potential. This is probably going to go places. I want to like be on the forefront of it. But as I started doing it, I started seeing a lot of people, they try VR for the first time and they just get so excited, and they start thinking about all the possibilities for it. And I call it like VR fanboying or fangirling. It's like when people, they try VR for the first time, like, oh my God, I could use this at the doctor. I could watch movies in this. I could do this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, you could do all that stuff. So it's just seeing them like realize like, wow, this is like some cool stuff, and they had a really good time in it. I didn't realize it at first, but it was like it would end up being the most fulfilling part of this job. Is just seeing people, just have a good experience, um, try this technology for the first time, especially if they're like afraid. Some people will be like, I don't know, it's something I never did. I'm afraid of it. And I'm like, look, it's just a beach. You don't even have to hold the controllers. Just and if it's too stressful, you just take it off. So and then they try it and they're like, wow, that was amazing. Like, I'm so glad I tried it. I think that's probably like my why. Like why VR? It's because I like making it accessible and I like seeing people enjoy it.
Very good. And as we wrap up, what imparting words of peace do you think you have to share with everyone this morning?
Um, I guess try and find that one thing that brings you peace. Um, that one hobby that you do that makes you feel like you could block everything else out. For me, it was guitar. For someone else, it might be crocheting or sewing or writing or watching movies, something like that. I think it's good to know what your kind of go-to meditative hobby is because then when you're stressed, you know what to do. You just go to it. So some people, I think they don't know what it is, and so they might have like trouble when they get stressed out, and they might not really know what to do. I think it's a good thing to just like pick that one thing. That way, like okay, I'm getting stressed out. I'm gonna go to it, so that I could feel better for after like a few minutes of doing it. Um, so I think that that's my parting words of wisdom is to find that hobby that brings you peace and identify it.
So, what is your hobby?
Mine is guitar. So like I said, whenever I get stressed out, go to the guitar, even if it's for a few minutes. It just kind of like really helps me, level myself. So that's mine.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us this morning.
No problem, Janice. It's been a pleasure. I
It's been a
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
And so we'll put your website down in the comments so that everyone can see it. And if they want to connect with you or learn more about how VR works and how they can like maybe do some meditation in virtual reality and in a different insane environment like space or the deep sea or what have you, they can contact you.
Definitely. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff on the website. And there's on Instagram, there's some stuff of the meditation events that I mentioned as well. So if anyone wants to check that out, they could check out Pioneer VR on Instagram.
Thank you. And you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Janice. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
I'll put you in the green room. So, thank you again, Chris, for joining us this morning on Unique Peace and talking about peace in VR and how the two can mesh. Next week, we have Jennifer Nix. She's a local realtor here, but she's got an interesting story as well and what brings her peace. So, we will see you next week. Thank you, guys.